All right, let's get right into it. So a lot of narrative shifting is going on, especially since Drake lost the lawsuit. And now we are looking forward to the Iceman album being released sometime later this year in 2025. So we are going to go through the various disses from, or just shade from Drake and j.cole, subs towards Kendrick Lamar throughout 5 a.m. in Toronto, Jodeci Freestyle, First Person Shooter, and Evil Ways. We're going to set the scene. So the first, I guess, shots you could say traded between Kendrick and Drake was 5 a.m. in Toronto. Now, this is March 7th, 2013. There is no Not Like Us. There is not all these disses. We don't have all this information. These are two artists who have been on tour together, have a couple records out the past year. Drake is vying for a position to be the #1 MC. He sees himself on the level of Jay-Z, of Kanye, of Eminem, etc., etc. And he would let us know this throughout his records, and especially throughout the timestamps, which is Drake's sort of State of the Union addresses throughout his career. Now, MTV does its hottest MCs of 2012 in 2013, and Drake is at #5, Kendrick Lamar is at #1. We covered that whole time period and situation. Check the video and link in the description, and at the end of this video, click that card to check that out. Now, when Drake gets into these bars, it's mostly aimed at the list itself and those who made the list. But he's also taking shots at Kendrick just because Kendrick was #1. Okay, not because they had a beef or they didn't like each other behind the scenes. They've been dissing each other the whole time. Look, these are just working relationships for the most part. You work with plenty of people you don't like. This is the same thing. Just because they do music and appear on tracks with each other doesn't mean that you're all friends and buddy-buddy with people that you're just working with. So when we get into it, let's just go through the parts that I think in the song that Drake is taking shots directly towards Kendrick's way, all right? Now he starts, the part I love most is they need me more than they hate me, so they never take shots. I got everybody on safety. Now that to me would be a direct shot at Kendrick being #1, more talking to the field as far as them seeing him as #1 and him referring to Poetic Justice, right? Poetic Justice was a big single on Good Kid, Mad City, but we also have to remember that a lot of people were going to get records from Drake that were in Drake's style and format. Kanye West being the most prominent of those, but Drake was featured with pretty much everybody who was big at that time. He's referring to all of those people, not just Kendrick Lamar. Again, this is not hyper-focused on Kendrick. Kendrick is not, in Drake's view, I don't believe at the time, as serious competition as we know now, right? He's still kind of going into the battle last year. He saw him as somebody he could dispatch pretty easily, which was his biggest mistake. But let's continue. Give these ninjas the look, the verse, and even the hook. That's why every song sound like Drake featuring Drake. Straight, why pre, why it's always me, right? Now that why pre, I believe means, or being in somebody's business, I believe. All my Jamaican people straighten me out on that. But this directly includes Kendrick as well as other artists, right? I believe Poetic Justice is more, could have been a Drake song overall. If I listen to Good Kid, Mad City, in my opinion, the song doesn't really fit in the album the way the rest of the album fits together. So again, that's more a label thing. We need a hit. This kid is hot. They already had a working relationship. I explained that in the first video, Young Money and TDE. So that's a big radio record. You have to give the label those radio records. Drake was the radio artist at the time for the younger generation in the hip hop space. Now, then he continues, I got a gold trophy from the committee for validation. All right, that's the Grammy. Now, at this time, Kendrick is not even up for any Grammys, right? But this is in response to his position on the list, right? A lot of ninjas PR stunting like that's the movement, and I'm like the only ninja still known for the music. I swear, F them ninjas this year. I made Forbes list. F your list, everything looking gorgeous. Without me, rap is just a bunch of orphans, but if I stay, then this ish is a bunch of corpses. Now, the feature track on Take Care, and this is after Take Care, with Kendrick Lamar is called Buried Alive. And of course, at the end of Buried Alive, Kendrick says, you're dead, right? Talking about himself, though. This is why people think that Buried Alive is a diss towards Drake. I understand that. But again, if you listen to the next song on Take Care, what Kendrick is talking about as far as dealing with the industry is what Drake is going to talk about in that next record, which is titled Underground Kings. Okay, that's why the interlude is titled Buried Alive. They're putting an album together. But these lines is Drake not only stating his case as why he should be number one, but also taking a slight shot at the guy that you all put at number one. That's the without me rap is just a bunch of orphans, but if I stay, then this ish is just a bunch of corpses. Okay, that is. And if I was Kendrick, I would have took that as, oh, okay, that was kind of a little threat there, right? That's a little sub towards me on the Buried Alive record. Get it. But I don't think Kendrick was paying enough attention to Drake or taking him serious enough as an MC to feel any kind of way. It's just bars, it's competition. Real MCs don't really take offense to that in that kind of way. This would be taken, especially back then, as normal raps, okay? You're gonna catch some strays, especially when somebody's addressing something that has something to do with you, especially being number one on the list. It's funny, and I understand that we have a lot of new people and a lot of new ears listening to hip hop and listening to bars in this way. So they think everything is a big deal. It's really not. This is very normal in hip hop to take shots in this way. But is that a shot at Kendrick? Definitely. But we have to remember about these two. Again, I don't think they've been around each other enough to gain all this animosity that they have now. There has been a lot of BS going on between these two since this time with this list. Okay, Drake overreacted to this, and as many others did as well. And then it turned into what we now know as the beef between the two. Okay, I don't think there are any disses on Poetic Justice towards Drake. Yes, you can twist it that way. Understandable. But if you Kendrick, you dissing Drake for what? At that time, Kendrick is focused on getting this record on the radio. Okay, they're telling me that Drake is the radio guy. This guy's gonna help me get this record on the radio. Kendrick is not having a lot of success before Good Kid, Mad City. Let's keep things in perspective in 2012, 2013, not looking at 2025 eyes and taking those back to that time. But let's continue with the next record. Now, Jodeci Freestyle, June of 2013, so we're about 3 months down the road. Both Drake and j.cole get a chance to get together and probably play some video games or something like that and really getting their feelings about this list and about Kendrick's success up to this point with Good Kid, Mad City, because honestly, not only due to the list, but just due to the reception that Good Kid, Mad City was receiving, Kendrick is slowly moving up as the next top young MC, or at least on the same level as Drake and above j.cole. So we know Drake is sensitive about the list. He's had 3 months to think about it, and he had a lot to say, all right? And there's a lot of subs in here. Let's get into it. So 26 on my third GQ cover. Your new ish sound like you do covers of all my old ish. Oh ish, I'm devoted to making sure you go unnoticed. Swear you ninjas is hopeless. I should run a clinic for ninjas that think they winning on some coach-ish. 50 M's for a 3-month road trip. Now, this, to me, all of that is subs towards Kendrick Lamar, which is why Kendrick would go on to be featured on GQ covers. But his first GQ cover, I'm talking about Kendrick, was done this year, I believe, in 2013. Now, it was the November cover, but who knows when they shot it, or, you know, whether it was slated to go already and maybe Drake knew about it. Who knows what the situation is, but it's interesting that he mentions that and then Kendrick ends up on the cover later in the year. Now, again, he could be talking to a lot of other artists when he says your new ish sound like you do covers. It sounds like to me he's talking to a newer artist when he says this, right? Because he says, I'm devoted to making sure your ish goes unnoticed. Who's he talking to? He's talking to somebody on the come up. And then when he gets into the road trip bar, they had just been on tour, a year previous or 2 years previous. So again, now his eyes is aimed directly at this new kid coming up. Again, this is in Drake's eyes. To me, for Drake to see Kendrick as, like I said, underneath him is a little bit out of pocket to me at this time, especially. But let's continue. Before you come to my city, just know yourself. Know where you at. I'm good in every town. I'm going to be doing shows where you at. Now, he's going to get into some LA talk later on in the verse, right? Now, again, do I think he's just talking to Kendrick? No, because we have to remember Drake was at it with a lot of people at this time. This is the beginning of the Kanye stuff. There was some Chris Brown stuff. There was just a lot. He was. I think he didn't have a lot of respect from a lot of artists because of where he came from and how he was and who he was and how he got on, all of that. So there was a lot of beef going on with Drake and him sneaking around with people's females. We all know that history. But the main reason I wanted to highlight these lines is the first bar, before you come to my city, just know yourself, is what led to the Know Yourself titled record. If you're reading this, it's too late, the album, right? Which was written mostly by Quentin Miller. But Know Yourself has nothing to do with the verses in the record, but the overall gist of the record is about him riding around Toronto. That's the running through the six with my woes song, right? So when he continues, now your money is just Lil Barney's co-op for you to be trying to show out. I'm in your girl's ear planting seeds like a grow op. We move the operation to Cali soon as the snow drop. Oh, stop. Please stop arguing about who's the best MC. I think everyone agreed. They know that you're not. I know I'm a sure shot. Now, of course, that's referring to the list. And who is he talking about? He's not talking about number 2, number 5, number 6, number 7 on the list. He's talking about number 1 on the list. All right. Now that's where the Cali reference, I think, is directly referenced towards Kendrick Lamar. And also the I'm a sure shot bar, right? Because now it's a competition between who's next. So he's saying, I know that I'm a sure shot, and everyone agreed that you're not the best MC. For some reason, again, especially with having ghostwriters and things like that, a lot of arrogance here. But hey, this is who Drake is. It got him far, but it might be over. Anyway, the bars sound like I'm under oath, ninja. I Comedy Central roast ninjas and turn them into ghost ninjas. Now, again, that's him early on referencing having ghostwriters, so to speak. We know Kendrick started as a ghostwriter. If you don't know, now you do. As did Drake. He also started as a ghostwriter, but Drake is having major success, has had major success up to this point. Kendrick is now starting to have major success. So now it's a hater move to try to pigeonhole Kendrick into remaining down there, being the underling kind of ghostwriter guy. That's what those bars are alluding to in Drake's mind. Maybe Kendrick wrote the verse for Poetic Justice. Who knows, right? Doesn't sound like it to me, but who knows? Now, either I'm getting bigger or you're just getting smaller, or it's both, ninja. Again, a short joke. That can be taken as a short joke. I'm sorry. That's what it is. I'm just as forgiving to most ninjas. You bit the hand, now starve. It's not a joke, ninja. I'll hang you with it after I teach you the ropes, ninja. Again, he's been referring to Kendrick as his little mans that he took on tour. He brought that back, of course, in the battle several times. And before we get into J.Cole's part, just this alone, okay, when people look at the Control verse and say, well, Kendrick did that for no reason, he was hating, those bars are a declaration of war in hip hop terms, okay? You're doing a little too much and blaming, and you're saying a little bit too much about me personally, just because I beat you on a list that somebody else voted on, right? So when people act like Kendrick did too much in Control and on the BET Cypher, he should have did more. It could have kicked off right after this, right? But it wouldn't have been a smart move on Kendrick's side because he didn't have the cachet that he needed to be battling Drake at that time and Young Money at that time in general, because they was at the top of things. But let's continue. Let's get into J. Cole's part of the Jodeci freestyle. Now, Cole was just mostly generally rapping during the verse, but in this part, he was addressing the list and his position towards not being on the list at all, and Kendrick being number 1. So, caught fire just to have ninjas ignore me and my flame. About to burn the house down. They trying to put me in the rain. F your list, you lame ninjas and doubters. I'm undoubtedly the hottest, and that's just me being modest. Go check the numbers, dummy. That's just me getting started. I'm artistic. You ninjas is autistic, and I can't say that word on YouTube. Hold your applause. Who gives a poker face when you jokers show me your cards? David and Goliath taking on the Giants. Now, I think that David and Goliath verse is referring to him and Drake, not him and Kendrick, right? Even though he and Kendrick have been working together up to this point. Now, but Cole's first record, The Sideline Story, did sell just as much as Kendrick's Good Kid, Mad City first week. Right now, overall, I think Good Kid, Mad City, of course, continued to ascend, and the Sideline Story did not. But j.cole, I think, released Born Sinner later this year. Matter of fact, not too long after this Jodeci freestyle record was released, right? So j.cole probably also saw that list as hurting his rollout for that Born Sinner album, right? Not putting him on the list at all. So j.cole's part at this point is not so much aimed at Kendrick. It's more aimed at the list and the makers of the list, right? But I'm sure in the back of his mind, he's also like, Kendrick can't really mess with me like that. But they were going to work together. They were supposed to do an album, and we still don't know why we never got the album of them working together. Maybe Cole will address it on the fall off. We shall see. But anyway, let's go to First Person Shooter and Evil Ways. These both should be really quick, as there's not a whole lot, but we also, if you've been listening, you've been following, most of this was also brought back up and addressed during the battle itself. But let's start with Drake on First Person Shooter. Now, Drake didn't do too much on First Person Shooter at all. That was more of a j.cole record to me. But okay, big as the Super Bowl. Now, to me, this was a shot throughout the song at Jay-Z, not so much at Kendrick. He said big as the Super Bowl, which is why I think they gave Kendrick the Super Bowl for sure after the battle. That kind of fell into their lap. That was God's plan. No pun intended. But the difference is, it's just two guys playing ish that they did in the studio. And just usually send their verses back to me, and they terrible just like a 2-year-old. Now, the rumors is, it has not been confirmed, that they did ask Kendrick to be on this record, which is why they referenced the big three in the first place, right? That's the rumor. We don't know that to be true, but if that is true, then those lines to me would be direct shots at Kendrick, since Kendrick decided not to be on the record. Now, the debate whether over j.cole was talking about Kendrick or these should be seen as disses towards Kendrick on First Person Shooter is something that keeps getting debated. I don't see how people are missing this as shots towards Kendrick, right? Especially when j.cole decided to diss Kendrick first after Like That, right? So love when they argue the hardest MC. Is it K. Dot? Is it Aubrey or me? We the big three like we started the league, but right now I'm feeling like Muhammad Ali, right? Yeah, the one they call when they ish ain't connected no more. Feel like I got a job in IT. Rhyming with me is the biggest mistake. The Spider-Man meme is me looking at Drake. Okay? What happened to the big three? What did j.cole say about Kendrick's albums? What did he say about his last album in 7 Minute Drill? He said it was trash, right? It was garbage. So again, ain't connecting no more. Who is he talking about? Who is they? And who did he leave out of the next line after he just mentioned Kendrick? That is not hard to figure out, okay? He's letting them know. All right? I feel like I'm better than you. But call me and I'll give you a feature and help you out. All right? Yes, people who like Kendrick gonna say, how dare he? j.cole, this is how he feels about it. And this as he should. He should feel this way. But anyway, let's continue. Hate how the gang gotta wait for the bars, man. This ish like a prison escape. Everybody steppers, well, F it. Then everybody's breakfast, and I'm about to clean up my plate. Now, hate how the gang gotta wait for the bars. Man, this ish feel like a prison escape. If the thing about Kendrick supposing to be on the record, I don't know why I can't talk right now, is true, then that's a direct shot at him again. Hate how the gang gotta wait for the bars. Why we gotta wait for your bars? Man, this ish feel like a prison escape. What is Kendrick's number one critique? He takes too long to release music, right? And then if everybody steppers, well, F it, everybody breakfast, and I'm about to clean up my plate. That's a direct shot again. If everybody is steppers, Kendrick, Lamar, Mr. Morale, and the big steppers. These are direct shots. This is not pity pat, right? He's daring them. I dare you. Since you acting like you don't want to collab with us, I dare you to say something to me, right? Then, of course, we know how that went. But let's continue. The GOAT with the golden pen, the top toucher. Now, this is a triple right here, right? Because the golden pen is him writing, right? If you bowl, sometimes that golden pen, to get a free game or whatever, They put the golden bowling pin into front. If you get a strike, you get a free game. Then he's referencing the 007 golden gun, right? The top toucher. When you get touched by a firearm, right? And the golden gun was a one-shot firearm, right? So he's saying it's only going to take one shot to get you up out of there. Okay, the spot rusher. Spray this whole ish up like the crop duster, not rusher, but apply pressure. Who's he applying pressure to? Who is he talking about now? Kendrick. I'm sorry, that's what he's doing. Yes, they can be taken as general bars. I'm not saying that. But with what he's saying in the verse previously, it sounds a little different, especially when he jumped out with 7-minute drill. So let's get into Evil Ways. Now, this is mostly Drake taking shots, but they both were going back and forth on the bars. So again, I'm gonna apply it to both. But let's start with the like Christian Combs with a brush in his hand once the grease is laid. Ish is a 360 label deal you signed to get your people paid. That's an early shot and a reference to the top dog bars and push-ups, right? That are gonna come later. So then diss me and you just may see us on your block, like the street parade at the top playing Keep Away with the Crown. Our life is an open book. Come and read a page. Now, we know one of these shots that people take at Kendrick again is his privacy. I don't know how that's a shot, but the fact that Drake is kind of saying that my life is all out there and you're hiding all the time. Now, why that is an issue for people, I don't understand. But we know he's going to use that later in the battle, right? As far as outing Kendrick and accusing him of things that up to this point have been proven to be untrue. So this is setting up an issue, so to speak, right? So let's continue a little further down. I stay out of beef, see Ninja's DNA get rearranged. That's a direct shot at Kendrick Lamar and DNA, right? Then Cole jumps in, I'm with Drizzy in Atlanta, so many hitters with that ninja, they could be the Braves. Then Drake comes back. Young Angel going through his demon phase. Hard to blame him, Lord knows this game could be depraved. Scary Hours undefeated, y'all should be afraid. Now on Scary Hours, Drake took a lot of shots at Kendrick and Kanye West. I've done videos on those that are not on the channel. I was saving them for Patreon memberships that at some point I will get started and do. But going through this now, we're going from 2013 all the way 11 years later into 2024. And as you can see, a lot of the same talking points are still there as far as animosity towards Kendrick Lamar. A lot of the vitriol is still there. J.Cole seems to have gotten a little more, or have a little more disdain towards Kendrick, right? When we get into these bars here. But all of that is, again, in hip hop competition. This is not unnormal. This is not a big deal at this time, even still, right? First person shooter, Evil Ways, Scary Hours, none of that is a big deal. Like that, all of that is light jabs for the most part, okay? Kendrick stated it pretty clearly. This is supposed to be a friendly fade. You should keep it that way. I know some issue about ninjas that'll make Gunna wanna look like a saint, all right? It didn't get crazy until Drake recorded Family Matters and decided to release it. Because again, Kendrick somehow had a heads up on this. And that's probably because people heard the record and was like, all right, that's a little bit too much for this battle. Not, the Pusha T battle went the way it went because there was a lot more behind that battle. But for this battle with this big of an artist, Drake, you probably shouldn't go this route. And now he knows that, right? You don't have to tell him anything at this point. But at the time, this is just positioning. It's not these two hate each other. They're mortal enemies. This started out as just who's the best rapper? Who's the hottest MC? Who's number one? And that's what it was until Family Matters and Taylor Made Freestyle. I keep forgetting about that one because they erased it. But that also was really the first really disrespectful thing, is the use of Tupac and Snoop's voice without their permission. And of course, we couldn't get Tupac's family's permission, right? That was the first disrespect. Then the recording of Family Matters and releasing it and doubling down on it. It was a lot. That was a lot. So hopefully this clears things up for the OV hoes and for people who are new to the culture and are diving a little bit too deep into trying to make Drake and Kendrick mortal enemies. They are now, but they weren't up until this. This was supposed to be a nice battle. Of course, Kendrick was going to out-rap Drake if you know anything about hip-hop, but Drake had the star power. Just didn't execute it right to even make the battle close. So that's all we got, man. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If I missed anything, you got anything to add, let me know in the comments. Hit that like button if you haven't hit that like button yet. Hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed. Share this video. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Remember to watch that preview video. It should be appearing on the screen right about now. Thank y'all for watching as always, and we out.